everybody. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very, very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
My name is Stephen Murray, and I'm calling from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay, and Mr. Murray, can you tell me about your past leading up into your present?
Sure. I was born in England, and at the age of 7, my family moved to Southern Africa, and I spent all my formative years there, growing up in different countries, primarily Zimbabwe. It's now Zimbabwe. It was then Southern Rhodesia. And when I finished school, I left Africa and went back to live in London, in England. And I settled in London and had a fabulous time there. London's an incredibly amazing city, and there's something for everyone. But the climate is so awful, 6 months of rain, which isn't very pleasant, and I wasn't used to it, having grown up in sunny Africa. And I got
We
the
kind of we kind of was talking about off, the camera that it's just like Seattle, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, get everything's very green. The countryside's very green, like it is in Seattle, very green because of all the rain it gets. And I received the offer of a job in Los Angeles, California, and I seized the opportunity, and I came here just with a couple of suitcases and $500 in my pocket. But I had a job to come to, and I spent 27 very happy years in California, and I started my own business. And it was a partnership. There was just the two of us in the business. And then after 27 years, the traffic just got too heavy, and it got a little bit too difficult to do business. So we moved to Las Vegas and moved the business here. But while I was in Los Angeles, we were able to travel extensively throughout the world. We've been to all 5 different continents. I traveled to Europe when I was in England, and then in Los Angeles, I traveled to Australia and different countries in South America, primarily Peru and Machu Picchu, and the Galapagos Islands. And then in Asia, had a few trips there, one to Hong Kong, one to
Tell me about your experience. Did you ever experience out of your travel? I asked you this before, but I have to ask again. During your layover, did you ever have a layover during your travels to different continents? Or did the cards always seem to fall, you know, in your favor as God was watching you and you had it pretty cool, you know?
Yes, relatively speaking, they were all pretty smooth travels. The planes, boats, trains, whatever, all seemed to fall sort of neatly. There was only the one trip, and that was when we went to Palau in Micronesia, and the plane got cancelled at Los Angeles airport, and we were stranded there for like 14 hours, but it was during the day. And then at night, we finally got on a plane, and we couldn't get to Palau the same night. And we had to spend a night layover in Hawaii, which was unexpected. But that's only one trip. And when I think I couldn't count the number of times I've been on an aeroplane. And no, I've never been stranded anywhere or delayed any significant times. No.
Well said. Can you tell me about the food atmosphere? Because, each, continent or country have different foods that they love to eat. Tell me about your experience on however many you can remember continents or countries that stuck out to you, the food and how you had to eat it, to the texture.
Fortunately, I have an appetite that doesn't have too many dislikes. The only food that I can't eat, strangely enough, is Mexican food. For some reason, there's something in it I can't eat, the tacos or the enchiladas. But anywhere else, whether it was in South America or Thailand, I love Thai food. Um, uh, certainly South America, we had no problems with any of the food. We always try to sample the different restaurants, so we get to eat some of the local food. But most places now, there's always American restaurants. So if you don't feel comfortable with eating the local food, you can always find American restaurants. Of course, there's
Were you
everywhere, but
were you spiritually bound by some of the foods that you ate that connected you to the actual continent or countries?
not by the food. Um, we're, we work. I was connected, as was my business partner, in different ways to certain countries. For example, Bhutan, up in the Himalayas, felt a very spiritual connection to that country, not necessarily because of the food, but just their whole way of life. That it's primarily a Buddhist country, and they consider the mountains sacred, and they limit the number of tourists in so they don't destroy the country. And they're just a very, very giving nature. It's a very poor country, but very, very giving in nature. There's nothing
Do
they won't do for you. Nothing.
do they dig like underground? Like, do they sort of like what happens in certain other countries? Because, if they consider the mountains sacred, you know, for thousands of years, people have been living underground, certain tribes and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they didn't live underground or have anything underground. They had what they call zongs, ZHONGS, and they were huge, big fortresses, and that's where a lot of the monks and would go and live and pray. But they were above ground, but it was in a huge, big castle, like a castle, and they were all throughout the country. And typically, they only allow people into those songs if they are practicing the Buddhist faith. They will only allow them in. We were fortunate enough we were allowed to go in because we respected their customs. If we ever went into one of their temples, regular temples, we saw how they bowed and we bowed along with them, and we respected their customs.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
makes a world of difference.
So Buddhism, what does it represent? I don't know. I hear the word, Buddhism, Hinduism, and other spiritualities, but what does Buddhism represent to you in your words?
Well, the way I saw it, the way I see it is, as I mentioned, they are very, very giving people. They put themselves last. They're always there trying to better other people. For example, there's no government assistance there. If you fell out of your job or work, your family and friends will be expected to support you and take care of you until you're able to get back on your own feet. If they can't help you, if they're not in a position to help you, the government will put you to work on a farm or something like that, and they will pay you, but you will work on a farm. But there is assistance there, but it's not just handouts from the government. It's everybody has to work together, and even the government. It's a monarchy. It's a monarchy system, but the monarch has a third of the country. The people have a third of the representatives, and the monks have a third. And sorry, the monarch has a third of the representatives in government. So it's everybody's covered, and thought about. It's
What
the
country is this again?
Bhutan. It's spelled
Bhutan?
Bhutan, and it's right in the heart of Asia. It's just southwest of Tibet and northeast of India. It's a very, very small country, and as I said, they allow very limited tourists to go in there because they don't want to have their culture very disrupted. They don't want it changed at all. Very, very primitive, but as I said, they will do
Very
anything.
smart. Very smart.
And just to give you one little example, there's no straight roads in the country. It's uphill and down dale. It's very mountainous, beautiful scenery. And they have a tour guide. They provide the transport. You can't have your own rent-a-car. But we're driving along, and all of a sudden, we pulled over, and there were two young girls working on the side of the street. And they said, "Do you mind if we pick them up?" And I thought they were related. We said no. So these two little girls popped in. We traveled about 2 or 3 miles. Then all of a sudden, the girls jumped out. And I said, "Did you know them?" They said, "No, but that's what they do." The kids were going home from school. There are no buses, so they're walking. And if you're going by in a car, you stop and you give everybody a ride to where they need to go, whether you know them or not. We wouldn't consider doing that here in our country. We wouldn't just stop and pick kids up and take them home. Parents wouldn't have it. But that's just their way of life. It's all giving and the betterment for your fellow human being.
And how long have they practiced this? How many years are they behind us on technology or, you know, things?
I think they're catching up fast, but when it's now almost 20 years ago since we were there, but at that time they had only just got DVDs and
Whoa.
DVD players, and they didn't have things like cell phones or anything like that. As I said, it was very, very primitive, and there are no restaurants. Even in the capital city, there were no real restaurants. We ate in the hotels, and it was all like a buffet style.
If you had to say how life should change for them for the better without disrupting their community or their territory, what would you say to them? Because maybe one day they can see this footage.
Hopefully that they will appreciate what they have and try not to let their way of life change too much, because although they might not have too much in the way of material possessions, they certainly have it in the spiritual manner, and that shouldn't be diminished, or hopefully they won't lose that sight of caring for other people, giving back. That's what life's all about, really. Giving back to others, making the world a better place than they found it.
Yeah. And you do that a lot, don't you? Tell me about what you do now.
Well, I try to, because I think if we've been given a lot in life, it's incumbent on us to give back. And for the last 2 years, I've been hosting a television program called The Gift of Giving. And it's a 30-minute no-charge interview to organizations that are non-profit here in the state of Nevada. I mean, in Las Vegas, we're known as Sin City, and we're not really a Sin City. We've got all these people giving back, and I interview them all. We've had over 100 non-profits so far on the program, and they're dealing with either homeless or children with cancer or blind people, people with dementia, seniors struggling to make ends meet. We've had all kinds of organizations, veterans, and there's all these amazing people giving back, making our lives better right here in the state of Nevada. It's been wonderful, very humbling experience, I might add. Very humbling.
Tell me which event stood out to you the most? Which event stood out to you the most out of everybody I know everybody is probably equal, but tell me something you can remember and recall that y'all talked about on an episode that will bring my audience to your community.
That's really hard, because as soon as you ask that, a flood of names, it's like a roster's just come flooding into the mind, mention me, mention me, mention me kind of thing. It's very hard to say, because they've all brought something special. And more often than not, if I'm having a conversation with somebody, they'll mention a condition, colitis or heart disease or something like that, and it'll trigger off that organization. And sometimes it's not necessarily what they're doing, it's who's doing it. We had a young man on, and he was a teenager, and he started up this program in his school to help teenagers who are considering suicide. Well, to have a 14, 15-year-old child do something like that, organize a non-profit that will help children who are thinking of committing suicide. It's amazing. It's nice to know that we got youngsters like that. And another youngster we had on,
Right people.
he gets he's opened up like a clothes store, and he started, I think, when he was like 13 or 14, and it's for kids, for children who are going into foster care that have never had new clothes. They just pitch up with what their clothes they have in like a trash bag. And he's now gone and got this little store, and it's just grown, where there's all new clothes for these kids who are going into foster homes, so they have something new to wear. And so sometimes it's the people who are doing the organizations that are amazing in and of themselves. You know, as I said, it's nice to see some youngsters actually not being glued to their cell phones and clicking all day. They're actually out there making a difference. It's very hard.
Youngerpreneurs.
Yes. Not doing it for the money. They're just doing it because they want to make a difference.
And that's going above and beyond. And those are things that God's look for in qualities, going above and beyond.
Yes.
And that's what they're doing.
Yes. And of course, I've been fortunate enough because the program is hosted by a gentleman, the station owner. It's a small station. It's called WWDB-TV, and the owner is John Stiles, and he's been extremely supportive of the program. So that always makes it nice to, when you've got the owner of the station that is 100% supporting your program. As you probably well know, it makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, it definitely does. I can relate. I have Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and they play my stuff in all of these different networks, these streaming networks. I gotta give them the credit, for helping me.
Yes. Yes.
So tell me, during your travels, how what else have you learned from, you talked about Bhutan, or I forgot what it's called, but we talked about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me about the culture of a different continent. Let's go to a different continent for a second. What are the differences between those continents, and what did you learn?
I think, Kimberly, it's not, the differences aren't always necessarily continent. They're more individual countries, because when you think about it, we live here in the United States. To the north of us, we've got Canada. To the south, we've got Mexico. Mexican culture is very, very different from the American, as is Canada. The way they live in Canada, and their culture is very, very different from ours. And that's what makes it so exciting to go to these different countries, how they learn to live in their environment and their way of life, and how, for example, everybody's on cell phones and what have you, and our communications is vast and far superior to how it is, say, in a lot of countries in Africa that still don't have cell phones. They've got to communicate in totally different ways. So that's what makes it interesting. But the one thing that both my business partner and myself discovered is that ultimately we all smile in the same language, and we all love in the same language. And that's the common thread that binds us as a human race and makes us so special.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just to sort of diversify a little bit and going back to your original question, when we went to Tahiti in French Polynesia, it was just after 9/11, when we had that terrible tragedy in New York and the Pentagon. And when we were in Tahiti, we went to this remote little island called Tikihau, and it was a tiny little island, no cars or buses or anything like that. And again, very, very primitive, and the streets were all dirt streets, but it was a lovely little island, nice coast where you could go and swim and snorkel and see fish and what have you. And as we were walking along, this young little girl came out from school, and she asked us if we were Americans, and we said yes. And she put her hand over her heart and she said, "Our heart, you are in our hearts and our prayers in America." And she was in this remote little place of the earth in Tikihau, but somehow she'd heard about it. And this was 1 week after we'd had that terrible tragedy, but she knew about it. And she said, "Our hearts and our prayers are with you all." And it was just heartwarming to know that it didn't just affect us. People across the globe were affected. They felt our pain.
That really makes me want to cry.
Yes.
Wow. That makes me have not even be optimistic, but have hope that not everyone is bad, just knowing that she said those words that I could have been just right there when it was being said. That's deep. Um we're running out of time, so where do you see yourself going for the future?
Um, that's a tough one, because my business partner myself shut down the business at the end of 2023, and we had all these plans for traveling. And unfortunately, my business partner, and he's my closest friend, passed away in July of this year after
I'm
18
so
months.
sorry to
Uh,
hear that.
Thank you. So a lot of the plans have now, the plans of places that we're going to go to together, like driving across the southern states of America, going from the West Coast to the East Coast through all those lovely southern states. I don't know as I want to do that by myself now. So right now is a time, I guess, of reflection and taking stock and figuring out where I want to go and what I want to do. But right now, I will continue writing my books. I've written 6 books, and I'll continue to do the TV show while I catch my breath and think, okay, what path do I want to go? And we're coming up to the end of the year, so after this year winds down, hopefully I'll be able to start the new year with some optimism.
Tell me more about your books. We got like 7 or 6 minutes, so tell me about your books.
Um, well, I started out, believe it or not, writing a book about my travels because I've been ultimately to 41 different countries. And you were talking about the differences, and the book was going to be all about the different cultures in these different countries. How food differed, how their clothes differed, how their way of lives were different. And I spent 2 years writing that, and I took it to be published, and I was told, "Oh, nobody reads stuff like that. You need to write women's fiction." I knew nothing about women's fiction, but I discovered a joy of writing, and I joined a group that helps you write. They help criticize and offer constructive suggestions. And I thought I really want to continue writing, and as little as I know about women's fiction, I'm going to have a stab. And so I wrote a book about it's called The Chapel of Eternal Love. It's about a fictional Las Vegas wedding chapel because we are the marriage capital of the world. So I wrote this fictional book. The reader spends a day at the wedding chapel, and you meet all these couples as they come and go, why they've fallen in love, and why they come to get married in Las Vegas. And even though it's fiction, people wanted to know what happened to the couples after they left the chapel. So my second book was a sequel called Return to the Chapel of Eternal Love, and it revisits all the couples in the first book. So that 5 years down the road and where their journeys have taken them. So those are my like mainstream fiction. Then I have got a cozy murder mystery it's about a wealthy Beverly Hills couple. They're celebrating their silver wedding anniversary, and they take their close friends and family on the Queen Elizabeth II, that luxury liner, to celebrate. And of course, it's all very opulent and extravagant and excess. They all fly to England and catch the ship coming back to New York. And as they're coming back, one of the party gets murdered. So that's a nice, cozy murder mystery. And then I have a crime fiction set in Las Vegas. And it's about three ladies who work with the most exclusive escort agency in Las Vegas. And the guy that runs it treats them like dirt. So they decide they're going to come up with the perfect crime to get rid of him. And you're with them as they plot and they plan, they connive and they scheme and execute the murder. Then, of course, the mystery is, did they actually come up with a perfect crime, or did they overlook one little detail that brings everything crashing down? Then I've got a nice, warm, fuzzy, feel-good Christmas book. It's called Discovering the Christmas Spirit. It's just nice, warm, feel-good, and obviously in time for the holidays. And then I have a light-hearted paranormal book called Yours in Spirit. And it's about a spirit that occupies a house in the south of England, and an American widow. She's recently lost her husband. She goes and she buys this house in England, not knowing that a spirit lives there. And now the two of them have got to learn to coexist. So that's a light-hearted paranormal. And those are the 6 books in a nutshell.
Okay. Wow, that is amazing. Those are so wonderful, very interesting, strong dialogue, very good with keywords of books. So how can the people reach you?
If they want to, if they're interested in the books, they can go to the website, which is www.authorstephenmurray, and it's as it's spelled there on the TV screen, stephenmurray.com. And if they want to reach out to me via email, they can reach me at Stephen@Cassandra's, CASANDRAS.net. And I'd love to hear from any of them if they've got any questions or comments. Love to hear from them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Murray. Stay on the line for a second. Thank you guys for joining my show today. You take care, be safe, and I will see you guys another time.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Never waste my time. You all I want.